I'm Danica Daniel, and you're watching MusicTimes.com. Today's guest first became a household name back in the 90s when he starred on the hit Disney series, The All-New Mickey Mouse Club. Over a decade later, he once again stole our hearts as part of Adam Levine's team on NBC's The Voice. These days, he's back to the drawing board with his self-titled new album. Please welcome the sexy crooner, Tony Lucca.
Sexy crooner.
Sexy crooner.
Hey.
I mean, seriously, I was telling you before, I normally don't do these interviews, but I'm such a huge fan that I literally had to like push my staff aside, like I have to do this interview.
That's so cool. Well, I'm flattered. Thank you.
So I mentioned that you started off on Mickey Mouse Club, and then tell me something about those days. Like, what are your fondest memories about that time? It was a long time ago.
No, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, gosh, it's hard to believe it was over 20 years ago.
Wow. Yeah.
Right?
I didn't even think about that. We're both old. Am I old? Now
Yeah, no, yeah. But it was, it certainly was far more fascinating in hindsight than it was at the time.
Okay.
At that time, at that age, it was just like, wow, it was a new adventure, but it was kind of, it got normal real quickly,
mm-hmm.
you know. I was sort of a big fish, small pond, and then thrown into this big aquarium with all these other great fish, mm-hmm. you know. But that was high school for me. You know, it was like a lot of people look back on high school as a great time, and it's because it's an important time. But for me, it happened to be a little more important for me, just because it was.
It's in front of the world.
A, it was in front of the world, but B, it's been looked back now because of the success of so many of the other cast members. People keep bringing up my high school.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I've had to look back at it a little more often than maybe the average person might look back at their high school experience. But it was bizarre to think that all of us were just kind of hanging out, bumping into each other in the hallways of the sound stages in Orlando. But I cherished the whole experience and everybody that I met and worked with, and I don't, you know, man, I wouldn't trade a second of that for anything. It was great.
Do you keep in contact with any of your high school castmates?
I do.
Feel free to name drop.
I mean, well, that's really, it's sad, but that's kind of what it's, how it becomes, you know,
yeah.
for sure. I was excited to learn that Ryan Gosling was back on Twitter, which meant that he might have a phone in his hand again.
Okay.
Because for a while there he dropped off, but we've gotten back in touch via text and stuff. But it's funny because when I was living in LA, LA is just one of those towns where you know, not unlike New York, but mm-hmm. like you bump into people and you see celebrities and stuff. But the one celebrity / friend that I would bump into the most in LA was Ryan Gosling, man. Like I would see that cat all the time in random places mm-hmm. too, you know, like breakfast spots to the YMCA, just like, wow.
Fighting crime.
Fighting crime.
That's great.
You know, yeah. So it's just bizarre. You bump into those people, and Justin, of course. You know, mm-hmm. we've had the pleasure of collaborating again since Mouse Club and working together again. And Carrie and I keep tabs on each other, and every time I come to New York to invite her to a show, she's in LA, and vice versa. But it really was. It was a wonderful family to have been a part of, and to still be a part of, and we all continue to support each other as best we can.
So musically, I have to think that during your time on the Mickey Mouse Club, you got to sing a bunch of different songs from different genres. Is that kind of how you honed your own sound, or are there songs that you remember singing that you're like, okay, I'm not going to do country. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, no, that really was a part of it. You know, I think I you know, for a while I wondered if having done all of that made me a little too much of a chameleon mm-hmm. and less of a you know, artist of my own vision, mm-hmm. Where I understood the value in all these different styles of music, that maybe I wanted to incorporate a little bit too much of all of it, as opposed to sort of picking a page and sticking to it. Because I would say, like in the early part of my career, I might have erred on the side of being a little too eclectic.
Okay.
Which, you know, I don't want to say hurt me, but might have made it a little more challenging in the face of the music business that's a little more compartmentalized and genre-oriented. But yes, it did help me along the way realize like what I could do and what I couldn't do, especially, you know, working alongside some of the other talented you know, cast members of the show, yeah, I knew that I wasn't going to be the R&B vocalist extraordinaire that some of those kids were going to be. I also knew that I had something a little different than, you know, some of the other kids, and yeah, it was an important time to learn and acclimate. And again, like I said, I couldn't. You can't pay for an education like that.
And have you ever tried to define your sound now?
I have. You know, I've over the years I've tried to find clever ways of putting it, because people ask all the time, what kind of music do you play?
Yeah.
Aside from saying like good, you know, you know, for some reason I just want to be a smartass about it.
Yeah.
People ask, and
you want to say it cannot be defined.
I'm like, well, you like Celine Dion? I'm like, yes, I love Celine Dion. Well, you'd hate my music. See, no, you know, I for a while I called it soul folk. Until I met a few soul folk, and they were like, boy. But yeah, I said like somewhere between James Taylor and Bill Withers.
Okay.
And people seem to get that.
Get that.
Like as if that's some kind of new genre.
But like way hotter than both of those guys.
Well, they were both singer-songwriters, you know, and one was very traditional folk, and one was much more, you know, soulful. And coming from the Metro Detroit area, I guess I had a bit of that, you know, from the get-go. It was that Motown vibe, and the soul music thing was always going to be, within arm's reach.
So then you're on the Mickey Mouse Club. The show ends. You know, time goes by, and then we see you again on our screens on The Voice. What made you even decide to try out? And during a season that Christina Aguilera is a judge, like what made you think, yeah, I'm going to go on that show?
It really was the timing of it.
Okay.
You know, not that I was ever a fan of American Idol.
Okay.
Because I'm just not. You know, like I didn't ever really enjoy the formula. But even if I was into it, I think I was only eligible for the first few seasons, and then I was technically too old, or my professional career had exceeded the limitations of what was, you know, allowed for Idol. Because they're looking for like the greenest of the green, amateurs, whereas I think I had done a little too much to even qualify to audition for Idol. Whereas when I saw The Voice, and I saw that like not only did they not shy away from people with past experience, but that was part of the show's formula, I was like, well, hang on now. You know, like if I could take these, you know, damn near 20 years of experience and tell that story and have it, you know, work for my benefit, and get a chance to sing for some people and maybe turn some heads or chairs or what have you, you know, that'd be cool. But also you know, I'd be lying if I didn't say there was a part of me that was watching the first season of that show with Christina on there wondering like, wow, what would happen? What would she? Would it be an obvious thing? Would it be like not so obvious? And it turns out it was not so obvious. but yeah, the curiosity kind of killed the cat, you know. And I was like, I was in between projects. I wasn't in an album cycle. I had just moved out of Los Angeles after 16 years of being there, and I kind of had like, I had that moment where you're like, you know what? Why not? And I went for it.
And all four chairs turned around, and you were like, no, sorry, Christina, and you picked Adam. So,
well,
how was it working with Adam Levine on the show? I mean, you got a record deal out of it.
He was super cool, man. You know, he's the real deal, and it was really a lot of fun getting to know him, getting on a really personal level to where we could speak honestly with each other. Not that we got terribly close in the short couple of years that we worked together, but like close enough to kind of call each other out on some things, maybe, and identify with each other, you know, tendencies and things that you do as an artist, or as, you know. We came up in LA around the same time, you know. I think he had obviously a bit of a head start, but we played a lot of the same clubs. We had a lot of the same friends, and ran in some similar musical circles in LA, and without even knowing that going into The Voice, I think he recognized something about that. There was something in there that he was like, I seemed familiar to him, and I definitely knew as a fan of his. I was a fan of, you know, the early Maroon 5 stuff. That like, if there's someone on this panel that's going to get what I want to do, it's probably him. And I think to greater or lesser effect, I was right. We had a cool thing.
I mean, definitely you obviously relate to a bunch of different decades, a bunch of different audiences, and you finished third. Tell me about your music now.
Yeah, man. The music now is sort of a refined version of what it was prior to The Voice.
Okay.
You know, I think like The Voice was sort of this filter, you know, that everything I had done prior had led me to and then through. And now on the other side of that whole experience, it's kind of a no-nonsense sound. It's a no-nonsense approach, and there's very little guesswork to what it is. Maybe I'm still reluctant to put it into a genre classification, but whatever it is, I'm not half-assing it. And, you know, not that I ever was, but like there's no, you know, it's a much more true approach, a much more honest expression, and I think that's why ultimately I chose to make this new album, a self-titled album after 8 albums. It just felt like a starting over point, and I feel like that might have been a solid way of doing that.
So if it's kind of a reintroduction to your fans, what do you want your fans to know about Tony Luca today? That I like to play electric guitar. No, the record's rocking, and truth be told, I mean, before all of this, you know, before Mouse Club, before any of it, I was in a garage band, you know, and I made my first paycheck at 12 years old for a gig, and I realized, like, wow, I can get paid to do this, and I think I'm going to do this forever. Yeah. And you know, but I grew up on Guns N' Roses and AC/DC and Led Zeppelin and Kiss and just, you know, rock and roll, you know, then it matured into Tom Petty and Bruce Springsteen and, you know, 80s stuff like ZZ Top and Billy Squier and just, you know, the classic stuff that I felt like I finally had written that batch of tunes that I could make a record that might be on par with some of that stuff. So that's where I approached this new record. You talk about being in a garage band at 12, and then you're sitting here now, and so many people hear the word child star, and it always becomes like, oh my gosh, so he was a child star, a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you avoided the pitfalls of like all of that, you know, drama, or just kind of staying on the path? And
my parents. I mean, that's it. And I think, like, in all my experience with watching child stars and being one, and to some extent, you know, like growing up in that world and young Hollywood and all of it, folks, that's really what it comes down to. Good parents, and for boys, for guys, like if you got a cool relationship with your mom, cool. If you're a woman, if you've got a good thing with your dad, it sounds cliche and trite, but that kind of it, you know. I think the sharpest tack in the batch was Justin Timberlake. You know, he walks into a room and it's like the room dials into him. He just has that enigmatic quality, but he's a super smart guy, one of the most talented people we've all seen in a while, and he's just driven and motivated and clear about his choices, and he's got a really solid disposition, and I would easily attribute that to his relationship with his parents. His mom is such a badass, and she's been like his best friend ever since I've met him, and yeah, kind of helped him along the NSYNC and in the solo career, and you can't put a price tag on it, but when you see it, you know it. It's just like, I would be willing to bet that person has parents that love him, you know, and that's what I got.
We kind of saw that in you because he casted you to be the cool guy in his 901 silver tequila ad. Like, how is that? Did he just call you and say, hey, I need you to like kind of look?
Honestly, he did.
And just take a lot of shots of tequila on camera.
No. Once the behind the scenes stuff. Here's the funny part about this, man, was that I was a tequila connoisseur for a lot of years.
Okay.
to the detriment of my liver.
I'm mad we don't have tequila here now.
I love tequila. And Justin invited me to his 100th show of his, the Sexy Back Tour.
Yeah, just Justified or just
It wasn't
Justin.
Justified, it was
Okay.
the Sexy Back Tour. His 100th show of that tour was at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. And oddly enough, a friend of mine got tickets, like front row tickets, and wanted me to go, and I was like, oh man, now you've got tickets, like, that's weird, you know. Oh, well, let me just hit up Justin, let him know, and like look at me and be like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So I said, hey man, it turns out I got tickets to your show Friday, and just want to give you a heads up, I'll be there. And he's like, oh man, you gotta come backstage afterwards, whatever. And okay, cool, that'd be great. So we go to the show, and me and a couple buddies, and we just got hammered. We really got loaded. But we wound up going backstage for the hang, and I'm picturing, like, this is his 100th show of this tour. It's going to be bananas, right? No, there was 15 people in this private bar downstairs at the Staples Center, 3 of which were me and my friends. And I mean, like, you know, his lady was there, Jessica Simpson was there, I think, and it was like a small gathering of people. And the last thing I remember that night was buying him a shot of tequila and congratulating him. But suffice to say, that was like a rock bottom night for me. I mean, like, just literally, when I say last thing I remember, that was it. And no bullshit. Yeah.
It's the internet.
The next day, I quit drinking for 3 years straight.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I'm not kidding. I was like,
God.
that will never happen again. And I took 3 years off. In the middle of which, like a year or so later, he calls me after that night, and he wants, first of all, he calls me, and I see his number pop up on my phone. I'm like, what the hell is this about? Hey, man. And he sounds like, hey, Tony. He sounded like he was confused. And I'm like, what? Yeah, hey, man. I thought he butt dialed me, and then like just played nice for the next 45 minutes. We sat there and just talked, like just caught up for a while. I was like, hey, what's going on, man? Okay, cool. And then after about 45 minutes, I'm like, well, hey, I appreciate you calling me. He said, well, no, hang on, before the reason I called, what? And then he went on to tell me that he started his own tequila line. He's going to make his directorial debut. And he's got these 3 commercials he's got to do, that they hired a casting director to find these girls and these guys for this thing. And you're quoting philosophy, I forget the philosopher's name that he was quoting in this particular commercial, but he's like, and all these guys are coming in and they're trying to be like philosophical and heady, and I don't want that. He literally said, I just need someone cool to come in and just say the lines. I laughed out loud. I'm like, what was Johnny Depp doing? Like, dude, you can call anybody. Why are you calling me? You're like, really? And he's like, no, man, I said, clearly you don't want a celebrity for this part. You know, you're trying to go on the radar.
The every guy, right?
He's like, he says, yeah. He said, but honestly, and this is what really, like, again, getting back to the quality of the guy. He's like, because I'm nervous about this whole thing, and I feel like we've got shorthand in place that you could help me do. Like, I would be at ease knowing that I could say a few things to you and that you would know what I'm talking about. And I was like, man, I got your back. Like, I'm so flattered. I'm honored. I'm like beside myself right now that you're calling me to do this. But the fact that that's why you're calling me to do this, man, like, I will go out of my way to do whatever I can. Are you kidding me? So that's how it went down, man.
So you have to drink water during the commercial? This is in between the 3 years?
A, yes, I was sober, and B, it was total irony, right? I'm like, bro, I don't even drink tequila anymore.
Yeah.
You know? And so,
good thing water's clear.
So, right. But, no, it turns out, seriously, when you do the union rules, you're probably not unfamiliar with, but like when you do a shoot for a liquor or beer or wine, whatever, there can be no consumption of the product on the shoot, and there's someone there from like the FTA that is on duty to make sure there's no consumption of the product.
This seems like false advertising. and not
It sounds
fun
like
at all.
bullshit.
I know, it sounds like.
I'm not buying it.
So, you're now embarking on a Paint the Picture tour. Did I get that right?
Yeah, we're in the middle of the
Paint a Picture tour.
Paint the Picture tour, which was derived from one of the titles of one of the songs from the new album. And it just seemed like a really creative way of going about this, you know, like the way to sort of inspire the fans to just think creatively about how to help us promote it and you know, like expression kind of thing. And it did. It sort of tapped into a cool thing with the fan base. We had a little contest before the tour to have folks literally paint a picture, you know, or filter the hell out of an Instagram photo, you know, and submit it, and you know, for like a contest for tickets and things. We got a cool response from it, and people are really creative.
Back in the day, Twitter, Facebook, it was like unheard of. Now, is it kind of crazy? Feel like you can talk to your fans, you get crazy tweets, like what? Tell me a little bit about
It's bizarre. For a while, it was frustrating because every time a new platform would be introduced, you'd like, you know, I would think if I was a fan of someone on a TV show as a kid, whatever, and then a couple years go by, and I'm still a fan of that person, I would just maybe Google them, or before Google, I guess, net search or you know, whatever, and see what was up, AOL search, and find their name and see if they got a website, and then maybe check that website every now and then. Not the case, you know, like there was MySpace, and a whole flood of old Mouse Club fans were like, oh my God, you know, I'm so happy to see you're still making music. And then Facebook came along. I had no idea you were still making music. I'm like, I'm 5 albums deep. And then MySpace and or Twitter and Instagram and like whatever comes along, there's just other people that you have to dig deep on each platform, and I've tried to do that for years now, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been cool, but yeah, there's all these weird taboos where, you know, someone can, if you follow them on Twitter, they can send you a direct message and they know you'll get it. On Facebook, if we're friends, you can just send me a message and I can respond to that, and it's like, you know, I think we're just working your way up to actually getting the email.
Yeah.
Or the phone number so I can text them directly, you know. I don't know, just layers of like, ooh, I'm a little more familiar with you now. I don't know, man. I've just learned that being and staying connected to fans as best I can, and still maintaining like the sanity of my world versus my outside world, and, you know, because I'm a family guy now, you know, and I want some space, you know. But I've been encouraged, empowered, and humbled by my fan base over the years, and I've really grown to appreciate everything that they do, and I think it's reciprocal because though I've got some really devout, hardcore fans, none of them are going nuts and like bothering me in any way, and that's cool.
So what are you going to say when your kids are like, Dad, I want to be a star? What do you say? I want to be a singer just like you.
You know...
Take a shot of tequila.
Hey, I'll pour my little glass of 901 tequila and say,
here you go.
Let's talk later. No, yeah, my kids are like, you know, my son's 12 and he's enterprising now, and he's starting to imagine ways in which he can, you know, make a career, and it's crazy. My daughter's 5, and you know, she's got an imagination like the Wizard of Oz. You know, it's incredible. So whatever she says she wants to do, it's like, well, that's awesome. You know, like, that is fantastic, and I think you would make a wonderful actress or singer or whatever. And you know, just because like 5 minutes later she wants to be something totally different. Yeah. So it's like there's no negotiating, debating that. It's like, fine, cool, yeah, I would love to help you do that. I think, you know, as they get older and they want to really start doing it, I've got a lot to share with them, obviously, and we can work through that and talk through it. But much like my parents didn't, you know, impede my dreams or my goals, I would never do the same to I would do the same to my kids. I would never get in the way, especially if they showed promise or talent or something. I'll be honest with them. Yeah. Because that's, you know, I would also say, like, people ask a lot, like, what kind of advice would you give to people trying to make it? And it's like, love what you do and believe in it, and trust, and never give up. But you know, find a source of accountability. Yeah. You know, find someone or a handful of someones that you trust, that you really like, you know, respect the opinion of, and you know, listen to what they say and improve.
So 20 years in, you know, besides Paint a Picture Tour, a few stops, Cleveland, Ohio, where do you see yourself in the next 20 years? What's next for you?
I think I'll be at this until there's no plan B. I'm a lifer. This is what I'm doing, and it's cool. There'll be different degrees of it, different versions of it. But you know, I live in Nashville now, where you know the bulk of the work down there is songwriting and publishing, and you know, probably ultimately spend less time on the road and more time at home, writing and producing. I really enjoyed producing and making records for myself and for other people, and you know, maybe a bit more of a home life version of what I do, but you know, there will still be Tony Luca records 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now.
I like that. There's no plan B. There's no plan B.
Nah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you. What a treat.
And thank you guys for watching. And please stay tuned for an exclusive performance from Mr. Tony Luca. As always, I'm Danica Daniel, and you've been watching MusicTimes.com.